Welcome to Love Your Pelvic Floor, a series for awareness, prevention, and healing of the pelvic floor. Begin comfortably, either lying or sitting. We're going to begin by talking about the breath and why the breath is so important to our healing. First, it's important to understand in yoga that the breath can control our prana, our energy. Prana is our vital life force. Pranayama is the practice of altering or controlling this energy through breathing exercises. Pranayama paired with mindful movements, our asanas, and meditation can have significant benefits for our overall health and wellness. Some of these benefits include stretching the deep core and connective tissues from the inside. These core muscles we'll talk about in a moment. The exhale stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that activates the rest and digest. Our breath also reduces anxiety and stress. It connects us to our deepest layer of core muscles. Deep breathing enriches the blood and oxygen in the body. It can also increase mindfulness, body awareness, and proprioception. And it can be the focus of our meditation. Our breath gives us something to focus on from the inside while we work with our poses and our movements from the outside. So now let's take a look at our deep core anatomy. So the deep core muscles, a lot of people associate with our abdominal muscles, but they actually include other muscles. At the top of the core is the diaphragm muscle, which is our biggest breathing muscle, and it's kind of shaped like an umbrella, and it sits beneath the rib cage. As we inhale, this muscle contracts and compresses and moves down to create a vacuum in the lungs, which cause the lungs to fill with breath. As we exhale, this muscle relaxes and it domes back up underneath the bottom of the rib cage, and it actually connects to parts of the thoracic spine, the middle of the back. So as we breathe, if we constrict our movement in the rib cage, we're constricting the diaphragm muscle and not allowing for as deep a breath as we could have. Next, we'll look at the transverse abdominal muscles. We'll just call them TA. These muscles are our deepest layer of core muscles that surround our torso. These muscles run from the bottom of the spine to the top of the pelvis, and they wrap around the entire spine and the entire torso, protecting our internal organs and supporting our spine. So when these muscles are weak, we may have weakness in the lower portion of the spine. So in order to create strength in these muscles, we want to allow them to expand and open up as we inhale and draw in, hugging in towards the spine from all angles as we exhale. You can think of these muscles as a corset. So at the bottom of our core is the pelvic floor, and the pelvic floor is made up of muscle and connective tissue. And these are the only muscles in the body that connect and attach directly to bone. As we inhale, we want the pelvic floor muscles to lengthen and to stretch and expand. And as we exhale, just like the TA muscles, we want them to draw in and up. We'll take a closer look now at the pelvic floor muscles. So there is a layer that connects from the pubis, the pubic bone, at the front of the pelvis to the tailbone at the back of the pelvis, and also connects to parts of the sacrum, the base of the spine. So again, as we breathe and we allow these muscles to expand and move with the breath, it also affects the spine. So the pelvic floor and the anatomy of the pelvic floor is very closely related to the base of the spine. So now another layer of the pelvic floor muscles run from side to side across the bottom of the pelvic floor and connect in between the ischial tuberosities, the sit bones, the bottom of the pelvis. So these are the parts of the pelvis that you can feel when you sit on the floor or on a chair. And these layers of muscles affect different parts of our anatomy, just as they do with the base of the spine. And we're going to talk about those now. So some of the functions of the pelvic floor, we talked about supporting the internal organs with the transverse abdominals, the TA, the deep layer of core muscles. The pelvic floor also supports some of our internal organs. As women, it supports our vagina, uterus, ovaries, so all of our reproductive organs. It also supports our rectum and our bladder. So the stronger our pelvic floor muscles are, the more support those organs have. Another function is the sphincteric function of the pelvic floor, such as in the urethra and the rectum. So anytime we go to the bathroom, we want these muscles to release, and when we're done, we want them to be able to close. When these are out of alignment, we run into all sorts of issues. The pelvic floor also functions in a sexual manner through orgasm and stimulation. So if these muscles are not functioning properly, we can experience pain and great discomfort during any sexual stimulation, whether that's through intercourse or other means. So another function is stability, which we talked about with the connection to the tailbone and parts of the sacrum, the base of the spine. So again, the strength of our pelvic floor muscles affect the strength of our spine and our spinal health. So we want a nice strong pelvic floor to create that foundation for the spine. Another function is a sump pump action in the pelvic floor. Just like other muscles in our body, like in our legs, act to pump blood and lymphatic fluid back upwards towards our heart, the pelvic floor muscles act as a body lymph pump for the pelvis. A loss of this sump pump action can contribute to swelling or pelvic congestion. So now that we understand why the pelvic floor is so important and how it works and where it is, let's start to develop that deep core breath that we talked about. So we're going to lie down with the knees bent. Feet are about hips width apart. And you can start by placing the hands on the bottom of the ribs. And as you inhale, just start to find a sense of expansion into the ribs, the front, the sides, and the back. We want a three-dimensional breath. And a slow release on the exhale. Feel that natural recoil of the diaphragm and of those upper transverse abdominal muscles. And then once you feel that, move a little bit lower. Move the hands lower to about the belly button. Inhale, expand, front, sides of the waist, middle of the back. Feel that expansion, and then exhale, slowly let it release. You can imagine like you're filling up an inner tube. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release all the air out. And then once that becomes comfortable or that starts to feel easy, move the hands a little lower. Move that breath awareness lower into the core, into the lower TA muscles. Inhale, lengthen and expand those lower belly muscles out towards the sides of the hips, in towards the lower back, where we know there is connection with those deep core muscles. Exhale, softly release. And feel the breath underneath the hands, expanding on the inhale and releasing on the exhale. And then you can point the fingertips towards the pubic bone, or even bring the fingertips to the pubic bone and inhale all the way down to the pubic bone, where the pelvic floor connects to the front of the pelvis. Lengthen and expand those muscles from the inside with the breath. And as you exhale, let those muscles relax. And then once that becomes comfortable, think about the breath now in the pelvic floor. Inhale from the pubic bone to the tailbone, front to back. Exhale, allow those muscles to recoil up and in towards the body on the exhale. Inhale, lengthen, stretch, expand. Exhale, release. And then to release this breath practice, just gently move the knees from side to side. We'll roll over onto our side. You can choose whichever side you'd like to start with. Rest your head on your bottom arm. Knees are bent, and the top hand is on the side of the waist and the ribs. And we're going to come into this breath awareness again. We want to find a sense of expansion on the inhales, and a release and recoil on the exhale. You can think of the core muscles, including the pelvic floor, like an elastic band. And the more you emphasize that inhale from the inside, the more those muscles and connective tissues are going to lengthen and stretch like that elastic band. The more recoil we'll get on the exhale. So we want a big breath to create this movement from the inside. And then we'll roll over to the second side now. So while we're focusing on the sides of the TA muscles here lying on our side, we're really getting that wide expansion. We still want to be drawing the breath and that sense of stretch down into the body and still down into the pelvic floor. We can think of a 5-story building, and if our natural breath moves from about ground level to the second floor, we want to, during this core breath, inhale all the way down into the basement and out the basement window. That's how far down we want to breathe into those pelvic floor muscles. And then exhale, recoil up to the 5th floor. We'll roll now onto our stomach, coming into a prone position. If you're not comfortable lying on your stomach, you can fold or roll up a blanket to place under the front of the pelvis. Maybe give those hips a little wiggle, rest the head down, and come into your core breath here now in this position. We want to be able to find this core breath in various positions so that we can access it throughout our yoga practice. So inhale all the way down and out that basement window, into the front of the belly, into the lower back, and exhale. Allow those muscles to relax and recoil back in and up. We're going to bend the knees and bring the bottoms of the feet towards the ceiling. This is going to help strengthen the diaphragm muscle. Continue to inhale, expand, and exhale, release. At any time, you can pause this video and stay in any position before you move on to the next. So we'll release the legs, wiggle out the hips, and we'll slide that left knee up and out to the side. Stay here and breathe. Hold that first side as long as you'd like, and then switch over to the second side. As you come out of each pose, you can release the core breath, and then when you settle back into a new position, reestablish that core breath. So this isn't a breath that we use day to day, but it's a breath we use in our yoga practice. So let's come back to that neutral position. Take a few breaths there, releasing the hips. Feeling the expansion not only into the belly, but also into the back. So take that same feeling of the breath expanding and pressing into the floor, into your lower back and the base of your spine, where the pelvic floor connects to the tailbone and the sacrum. And then we'll bring the hands underneath the shoulders and press the hips back to child's pose. And setting up this position so that it feels good in your body. So if you need to use blankets, bolsters, blocks, if you're at home, grabbing a cushion or a pillow. And once you've found your position, again, reestablishing that core breath. Inhaling down and out the basement window. And exhaling, releasing all of that breath out, letting those muscles recoil from deep within. Again, hold here as long as you'd like, and when you're ready to come up, slowly rolling yourself up. And find our way into a tabletop position, and take those knees a little bit wider than the hips here. Taking the knees wide will help bring our focus more into the pelvis. Finding that neutral pelvis, so the front of the hips and the pubic bone are in line with each other, so the spine is neutral. There'll be a slight curve in the lower back. Take a deep breath in, let the belly expand, let the pelvic floor lengthen, let the sit bones open. Exhale, gently draw the pelvic floor in, draw the lower belly in, but without moving the pelvis or the spine. Inhale, expand. Let those core muscles lengthen and stretch. As you exhale, very subtly drawing them in. So we're not squeezing. And on your next inhale, now we'll tilt the pelvis, drop the belly button, open the chest. And then exhale, zip up from the pelvic floor, lower belly, and round the spine, chin to chest. Inhale, lengthen and stretch. Exhale, zip up and gently round. And you can do this at your own pace of breath. And one more time, we'll sit back to child's pose. And for a moment, let this core breath go. Just come back to an easy breath. Notice any sensations you're feeling here now, in the body, in the breath. And then we'll slowly roll ourselves up again. Come into a comfortable seated position. We'll place one hand on the sides of the ribs and one hand on the front of the belly. As you inhale, breathe into both hands and find that sense of expansion. And then as you exhale, gently draw those deep core muscles in, those transverse abdominal muscles. And then remembering to do this from the bottom up. So inhale, breathe into both hands, and then down and out that basement window. Exhale, zip up, pelvic floor, lower belly, draw those muscles in under the hands. So we want to think inhale from the top to the bottom, and exhale from the bottom to the top. And now release the hands, but keep this breath going. So inhale down and out that basement window. Let all those core muscles lengthen. And then exhale, zip up. Pelvic floor draws in and up. Lower belly draws in, and we're gently hugging in that corset of muscle around the spine, front, sides, and back. To help you focus on drawing in and up with the pelvic floor, you can think about inhaling down and out that basement window. And then as you exhale, imagining like that elevator is coming back up through the body. So it's lifting the pelvic floor and hugging in those elevator doors. We'll release this practice just by taking a few shoulder shrugs and exhaling and releasing those shoulders down. Just to release that core breath. And then we'll find our way into Shavasana. And your Shavasana can be lying on the floor, legs up the wall, lying with a blanket or cushion underneath the knees, and just taking a few moments to rest. Namaste.